Welcome to Reddit Aliens. People who were on shows like Supernanny, World's Strictest Parents, or Scared Straight, what was the experience like? And what was the aftermath? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. A coworker was featured on Supernanny. They had a pretty good experience filming and were so excited for their show to air that they hosted a watch party. I'm pretty sure you can imagine what's next. The way the show was edited made the parents look so bad, like neglectful bad, and made the kids, who were pretty wild, look even worse. It ended up being a pretty awkward watch party. I'd like to contribute. Hopefully someone sees this. My brother was on a show called Violent Children, Desperate Parents, and honestly, they were brilliant. I wasn't part of this whole experience because I was in university at the time, but my father and my brother both were in this show, and the show staff were honestly brilliant. Here in the UK, especially Wales, where my family lives, mental health is not really a thing the poor have access to, and my family are definitely working class. This show gave my brother and my father access to mental health care they would have never have been able to access themselves, and made quite a large difference in both their lives. They continued to support my family for almost a year after filming with offers of more mental health help, and both my father and my brother are happier people today because of this. One thing I will say is the only reason we were featured on this show was out of pure desperation. There was basically no other way that my father could imagine getting help, given he'd spent almost 8 years fighting with the NHS to get my brother psychological help, all to basically no avail. My family were made into entertainment for the masses so that we could access something fairly basic. Something about the whole experience doesn't sit right with me at all. If you watch reality TV, do you think some of it is staged or scripted? I'm a little bit late to this one, but my younger siblings, mother and then stepfather, were on a program in the UK called Mums on Strike in the mid-2000s. The premise was that the mother would be sick of doing everything around the house and would be whisked away to a luxury spa for a weekend, leaving the clueless father in charge of trying to take care of the household duties. A lot of the conversations and scenarios were faked. I supposedly visited them for the weekend, but I did multiple different shoots across a few hours on the last day of filming, then went back home. They'd cause fights between the siblings by purposefully creating situations where one was favored over the other, so the others would throw a tantrum. There was a shoot on location in our local town center, and they encouraged my little brother to run off into all sorts of different shops, causing hilarity as my stepfather tried chasing after him with 2 other children in tow. Mealtimes were a bit of a farce as well. As it was a weekend, my stepfather had to cook a traditional roast dinner. The production company intentionally supplied incorrect ingredients to make sure my stepfather looked like an idiot. They filmed my reaction to him trying to add beans to the roast a few different times so they could pick the best one. In the end, after they'd got all the footage they wanted, they sent one of the production team out to the chippy to get us some actual edible food. TL. DR. Contrived, exaggerated, sometimes fake, full of drama. I was on Scared Straight, and my episode never even aired because they only select a very small amount of footage to make it look a lot worse than it actually is. Most prisoners were pretty nice. There was a program here in Spain that was like Supernanny but for teenagers. One of them was a guy who lived with his grandma and had a very violent behavior. During the show, you could see how the guy changed and started having a better relationship with his grandma. But I guess it was just an act, because when the TV crew left, he killed her. I don't know if this counts, but I was on an episode of Made on MTV, if anyone remembers that show. It was my senior year of high school, so about 7 years ago. People gave me crap about it forever, and still do. I was made into a screamo singer. The experience is interesting, to say the least. The money and flight or trip to New York City, though at 17 years old, made the whole embarrassment worth it. Plus, I woke in broadcast business now, so it really opened up a lot of doors and showed me a career I love. Seeing kids now that were in my shoes, so fascinated by entertainment media, makes me so genuinely happy. A friend of mine worked on Nanny 911 in New York City. Nothing on that show happened unless the producers okayed it. They would come up with scenarios and plot points to film. You don't just shoot TV shows like that and hope that something magical happens. They created every issue. Reality TV is not real. My friend was on Supernanny. They don't actually do anything, it's just acting. He and his brothers are still exactly the same as they were before. Like 3 years ago, I lived in a big 5-bedroom house with 4 other friends in college. The house was in an episode of Supernanny. We found out because our nice neighbor literally gave us a signed headshot from Joe Frost as a gift out of the blue. He literally told us, "I think y'all would like this more than me and get a kick out of it." It made our week, and we found the episode online and watched it. I asked about the family to the neighbor as our house was rented out and owned by a property company. He told me after the show, the parents fought all the time, lost all the money due to a 2008 crisis, and lost the house to foreclosure. The picture stayed on our mantle for 3 years, and I thought about that family every time. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. One of my friends in grade school was on Nanny 911 as a kid, maybe around 5 years old. There were a lot of kids in her family, and one of the biggest problems the nanny had with their household was safety. She baby-proofed the entire house and lectured them on safety precautions they have to take in their lives to ensure that the children wouldn't get hurt. She even gave them all helmets to wear whenever they rode bikes or four-wheelers. After she left, a lot of the safety precautions went right out the window, and later my friend told me that they still had the helmets, but they were all sitting in a dusty corner. I went to an all-boys correctional school 40 miles into the high desert in Washington state. A couple other guys here went on shows like this, and they never worked, hence being at the correctional school. The school did pretty good straightening most of us out. However, unfortunately, there's always a couple guys who just don't follow rules. If our school couldn't help you, you were sent to the other place, which was basically a terrible juvenile prison in Mexico that was ran by U.S. Marshals. One day, one of these marshals came to give a talk. He spoke about the other place and basically scared the shit out of us. At the end of his speech, he said, "And unfortunately, one of you is coming with us today." And we all simultaneously shit our pants. He says the name of the kid he was taking, we'll call him Colin. He then tells Colin to empty his pockets, take off his shoes and belt, and place him in handcuffs. The director of the school said some encouraging words to him and asked if any of the students wanted to say bye or wish him well. Dead silence. Then his roommate stands up and says, "I packed your stuff. You had no bags, so I put all your shit in some trash bags. Oh, and I miss you, I guess." A piece of Colin died that day. I never heard from him or about him after that day. Based off the rumors about that place in Mexico, it's possible he could still be there, and it's been 7 years since that day. Didn't end up on it, but my family was approached to take part in a German version of the reality show The World's Strictest Parents, Die strengsten Eltern der Welt. The reason being my father is somewhat well known in my country for being a bit of a wild man, looks like a Viking, very into outdoors, fishing, hunting, etc. They'd found a special of him on 60 Minutes and a few clips of him adventuring online and thought the Germans would enjoy watching bad kids being set straight by the bear man. Anyway, the interaction was done through a middleman, so to speak, who outlined what would be required of us and what small compensation we would receive for going along with it. At the outset, it seemed fine, even a little exciting. We had had close ties with a lot of exchange students in the past. We lived in a very small community in the mountains, and we all loved traveling. And my father didn't seem to mind the sound of helping out some struggling kids and possibly showing them a different side of life. Not necessarily that hunting and the outdoors are the only way to go, but more open their minds a little and take them out of their comfort zones, etc. We watched a few clips of the show online and decided that we were laid back enough as a family that the drama wouldn't really wind us up or anything. Well, alarm bells started ringing after a bit more correspondence with the middleman. He started insinuating that there would be times where the kids would be told to play up situations, and that we would have to either roll along with the staged drama or actively join in and amp it up for the cameras. My dad laid it out pretty straight, saying he'd be happy to take these kids under his wing and show them some pretty cool adventures. He had glacier crossing, hiking through rainforest, caving, whitewater kayaking, hunting, or at least watching him hunt, and tons of other activities across our country all planned out. I'd just become a scuba instructor and even offered to take them out diving on geothermal vents. But they really stressed the whole, people watch this show to see bad kids act batshit crazy, so that's what you're expected to encourage. We politely turned them down at this stage. A few months later, the middleman actually emailed us and told us it was probably a good idea that we hadn't gone along with it. Apparently, they never paid him for any of his work organizing host families or setting up scenarios. Ah well, dodged a bullet there, I guess. All my friends in Germany seemed to think so. TL, DR, German reality show wanted us to encourage struggling teens to throw temper tantrums and make my dad look like an angry bear man. Turn them down. Good. I knew a girl who was on Scared Straight. After the show, she ended up addicted to heroin and going to rehab. Hope she got her life together. Me too. I didn't go on, but some classmates went on Supernanny or Nanny 911, can't remember which. They lived rather close to my friend, so I went over to his place to watch the filming and such. The nanny stayed in their neighbor's house across the street, and the kids' behavior didn't improve for very long after the nanny left. From what I remember, they were trouble all through school. I lost contact with all of them during middle school. I lived in India. Once in my school when I was in 6th grade, these foreign kids pop up with a bunch of cameramen and stuff. Speculation went wild. We thought our terrible principal probably wanted to create a cool image for the school and was creating some kind of weird advertisement. Anyway, years later I saw a YouTube clip by complete chance of World's Strictest Parents. It was my school and those exact kids. They had come to an Indian family whose children went to my school. The episode was a lot of drama. The parents were kind of obnoxious, at least for the episode. However, the last I heard on asking a few friends was that the parents were fine and their children were doing reasonably well. Not sure about the foreign kids who came. What a small world. Seems like ages ago. I went to high school with a kid who was on Supernanny when he was like 11. Apparently, him and his sister's behavior weren't all that bad, and that one day a camera crew just showed up at his house. He also told me they were trying to force an emotional scene where he would hug his mom and say he loves her forever or something, and he was like, no, that's gay. And they were, please, and he was like, no. They settled on, love you, mom. I had a friend on World's Strictest Parents. She was approached by a producer late one night at a McDonald's because she was 15, drunk, and wearing a stolen police hat. Apparently, the producers hang around looking for kids there a lot. Anyway, she did her parent swap, was moderately wild, came back and decided she wanted to be a chef. I don't think she finished a culinary school. She had a baby at 19 and is a great mom to 2 kids now. I was on Supernanny. My siblings and I were out of control kids, and my parents frankly didn't know what to do. I liked being in front of the camera for the most parts. It's like a mini time capsule. I sometimes watch every once in a while and witness how cringe I was. Nanny Jojo set up this reward chart for when we were good. Heck, once they even filmed me in Time Out. One of the couples on Supernanny's show got recognized and reported to the cops by their neighbors. I can't remember the name of the family, just that they had a few kids and that the older one had sometimes missed school to watch the younger ones. I had a friend who was on the first season of Nanny 911. According to her, there really wasn't anything wrong with the kids behavior-wise, but there were 7 young girls in the family and 3 were triplets. The craziness was dramatized for the most part, and the real reason why her parents decided to be on the show was for the paycheck, so they could build an addition on the smallish house they had. Their father passed away very recently due to lung cancer from 9/11. He was NYPD and worked overnights, so they ran that house very strict. All the kids turned out great, and they're all beautiful and unique young women now. My auntie was once on Jeremy Kyle, which is basically a British version of Dr. Phil with families of crackheads and stuff who take lie detector tests. Sometimes it can be really serious, and other times it can be stupid, like tests to see who stole the lawnmower to buy black tar heroin. Her ex-boyfriend wanted a DNA test to see if the child was his, Maury. Surprise, surprise, it was, and months later he left her anyway. Now my auntie has 6 kids to 5 different men, and she constantly lectures me about getting a job when she's 32 and never worked a day in her life. This next story was disappointing on multiple fronts. My uncle's family was featured on Extreme Home Makeover due to a rare condition my cousin has. They got a brand new house, car, and mostly paid vacation. My grandparents drove out to the big revealing. They stood in the crowd of actors shouting, "Move that bus!" for 3 to 4 hours during countless reshoots while waiting on the host to show up. They ended up trading the car due to it being impossible to insure for at least 6 months because of the new model. They installed an entire fish tank as a wall in my cousin's room, which ended up leaking and causing water damage into almost the entire house, including the basement. The crazy home temperature control cost a fortune, which, compounded with everything else they had dealt with in a 6-month span, caused them to just sell the house in the end.